Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be an interesting one. And the reason this is going to be interesting is because for the past year and a half, one of the main reasons I've invested in Palantir, one of the main reasons I've loved covering the company, is because Alex Karp, the CEO, speaks to me more deeply than just a CEO, just an operator, but more as a philosopher. For someone who studied philosophy in high school, for someone who did competitive and international debate, who debated a ton of philosophies across the world, as I was on the national USA debate team, that speaks to me. And it can't speak to every investor, but it does speak to me. And I have historically argued many people on the channel and in many debates on our Palantir Weekly podcast saying for why the philosophy of Palantir is actually one of its biggest competitive advantages. It's actually one of the moats, and the CEO spouting that philosophy all the time is a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, when Palantir wasn't profitable and earnings every quarter were coming out in 2022 that honestly just weren't that good, I looked pretty bad as I'm saying, the philosophy matters, the philosophy is important, blah, 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 blah. Now, as they become GAAP profitable, and as the philosophy obviously is implicating the trajectory of future product growth, I think it becomes more important now than ever to have a philosophy with a product, especially in the AI space. Now, what I saw a couple days ago really vindicated my belief that yes, it is a good thing to have a philosophy, because there's other people that are kind of copying almost exactly what Alex Karp has been saying. This is a guy named Alexander Wang. He's a 25-year-old CEO of a AI company that's worth about $7.4 billion. He says, today, Scale AI is launching our two new major platforms to bolster government and enterprise, Scale Donovan, Scale EGP. Now, this is what he says about the government platform. I wrote a letter to discuss why AI is so critical to the next phase of the world. The success of democracy versus authoritarianism will boil down to our ability to integrate AI into our military and utilize AI to supercharge the economy. Does that not sound like anyone that you may have heard of before? The success of democracy is such a big word versus authoritarianism is going to boil down to our ability to integrate AI ethically. And then he writes a shareholder letter. I took a lot of crap from a lot of people over the past year saying, get rid of these philosophical letters. Why is Alex? And I'm just like, no, those letters to me as an investor speak volumes because I'm actually understanding what the CEO's vision is, not just what their, quarterly results are. I don't want a quarterly result. If I want a 5-10x, I want a vision. And a vision does not just come from the numbers. It comes from being able to see what is not obvious to see. So in his letter, the guy quotes, who does he quote? He quotes Robert Oppenheimer. At the end of World War II and the invention of the atomic bomb, this is what he said. He says, a fancy quote about changing the world. So he's comparing AI to an atomic bomb, which we've also heard by someone like Alex Karp. He says, these words have great relevance today with AI. We are in the midst of the next great sea change in the nature of war and thus the nature of the world. We live in uncertain times. Geopolitical risk is at a 20-year high since the Ukraine war. The United States is facing near peer competitors in China and Russia for the first time since the end of the Soviet Union. There is a global battle for ideologies between Western democracy and authoritarian regimes. Again, who does this sound like? Karp has been using the word uncertain for a long time. He's been talking about the near peer competitors with China and Russia, which is why they haven't worked in China and Russia. I mean, for someone to, constantly say China and Russia are bad and we have to deal with them and understand them, I don't know who else other than Alex Karp has been saying this. In fact, in August 2022, when Alex Karp had his little monologue about nuclear war right before earnings, and, earnings kind of sucked, but the whole reason he did that monologue was not to, give us a soft blow to the fact that earnings were going to be hard, but that this was a real concern. And if you actually listen to him, everything that he's been saying has been playing out pretty correctly, because he's been saying that the world is more unstable. The entire Stanley Druckenmiller interview was basically this one paragraph, just eloquently explained in a lot more of a better way. All at once, the advent of AI has upended the world. It's a paradigm shift that has granted new superpowers, and anything seems possible, with potentially greater implications in the future of our world than even the internet. As someone who has been building in the AI ecosystem for more than 7 years, it's exciting to see this technology finally reach its watershed moment. Navigating this new landscape is an existential matter for many organizations, for our nation, and for our democracy. The United States and the democratic world broadly is confronted with two very real challenges. And then he goes into the nature of integrating AI into the military. Now, again, this is a CEO of a $7.4 billion company. You may be saying, hey, Palantir is worth $20 billion. How are they, worth almost half of Palantir? They're a private company. If they were a public company, I think the lack of GAAP profitability might make them not be worth $7.4 billion. So nonetheless, it's a private company. And the implication of why this was so important, and the reason I wanted to talk about this, is because the people that have been saying Karp's philosophy around the company, the vision, AI, etc., is irrelevant towards the numbers, the sales, the demand, I am sympathetic to. I understand, because at the end of the day, if you're an investor, you need to see numbers. And I think what Karp talked about in Q1 2023 earnings was really positive for investors who are looking for increased demand and eventually, this 18% revenue growth number to be far exceeded because, again, as Karp says, we want to take the whole market. The problem is, if you don't have an underlying vision to take the whole market, you need to convince the Lithuanian Ministry of Defense. You need to convince the NHS. You need to convince enterprises. You need to convince major organizations that their data that they're feeding into your models, which the models are a commodity, right? Bard, ChatGPT, these are all commodities. The data is the differentiator. That's why I'm using Bard a lot more than ChatGPT right now, because I'm getting real-time data. And the ability to then securely process that data and essentially create the AI infrastructure to implement business intelligence within an organization or within a governmental body requires not only the protection of data, but the trust and the belief that the company is not going to misuse it. So the marketing for that has to be this idea that we are in an existential threat for our democracy. The marketing has to be that AI integrated into the military is going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. The marketing has to be that these are questions of democracy versus authoritarianism. And when you go to those extremes, which one do you want to pick? Well, you want to pick democracy. You don't want to live under a dictatorial regime. And so to me, Alex Karp has been beautifully explaining the vision of Palantir, while at the same time, simultaneously, whether he gets it or not, marketing the vision for the company, where all of those organizations that you need to be able to buy this product are going to eventually buy into that vision. They have to buy into that vision if they choose to go with Palantir over a competitor, not outside of the tech, but also outside of the fact that they trust that the company is going to secure their data. In a world of governance, in a world of regulations, and in a world of essentially a wild, wild west for what AI is going to be able to do, you want to go with the company that you can actually trust. And so when I see a CEO like this, basically copying word for word, and why do I say it's copying? Because Karp's been saying this for a year and a half now. This guy's in the AI space. We're about to watch a little interview with him. He knows who Palantir is. And so when you see your biggest competitors like Palantir basically saying every exact word you are talking about when it comes to democracy, authoritarianism, AI, integration, ethics, privacy, civil liberties, etc., and you're just quote tweeting them, right? You're basically saying the exact same thing they're saying. It validates that Palantir is doing it the right way. Now, again, their go-to-market, they still need a lot of work on sales, all that stuff, but the actual brand of how they are going to become one of the largest technology companies in the world by selling this vision of what their product can do, why their product is relevant, why their company matters when you're selling it to Wall Street, right, from an institutional perspective. Outside of the numbers, you need something greater. And I think if Scale AI, which it has a lot of VC investors, they probably want them to go public one day. How is that kid going to take that company public unless you have a vision that's as resounding to build a community of people who actually care to invest in that public stock? Unless you're doing it similar to Palantir. And the problem is, I don't think the tech can necessarily live up to Palantir. I mean, we kind of know that. And then the question is, if the tech can't live up to Palantir, is the vision exciting enough for people to even want, to invest in the company if they don't think the tech can live up to it? We talked about this on the Palantir Weekly podcast, and CodeStrap actually chimed in. I'm going to bring up his comment right now. Sachin brought up that this is honestly a joke that this guy's, and it's not from a disrespectful standpoint, it's just like it doesn't make any sense, right? That he's basically copying everything Palantir said. CodeStrap said, Scale AI is a platform for model tuning. They primarily do data labeling, model evaluation, and RLHF. This is a tiny sliver and supports AIP. AIP can plug in the models you tune into Scale or any of the other numerous competitors that do the same thing, which is why Scale is a commodity, to the Foundry and Gotham ecosystems. The platform in 40% of the Fortune 500 and one that is taking out tanks in Ukraine right now. The platform actually plugged into our defense intelligence agencies, warfighters, and Space Command, not the one that enables you to move pencils around, i.e. not PowerPoints. And I'm not even confident Scale AI can do that. Never trust a company whose enterprise documentation says coming soon, which is what their website says. The CEO picked a fight he cannot win, and his company just lost all credibility in my book. Not a good look for the CEO, especially one this young. Their product looks shallow, half-baked, zero documentation, and zero developer support. And that's coming from someone who actually understands this space better than most people, and I would have to agree with him. You're losing a lot of credibility, at least in my book, not just from the tech perspective, but from the marketing perspective, when your strategy has been repeated word for word by one of the most prolific CEOs who has people's attention when it comes to AI ethics and the integration of AI into our military, especially when you're trying to sell it to the government. I mean, the ties Palantir has to the government is just absolutely deep. And when we talk about deep, I mean, we're talking about he's getting interviewed by former, heads of DOD, etc. This Scale AI kid is not playing in that same game. And if he's not playing in that same game, but he's repeating that same language, it takes away a little bit of credibility. One last thing we'll see. This is what he says when he's asked from Bloomberg about the competition. Let's take a look at this.
Founder and CEO of Scale AI. And Alex, at the moment, I'm trying to wade through Palantir that wants to take the whole market. We had Salesforce on interjecting ChatGPT within its offerings for Slack and for Tableau. We've got IBM with Watson X. What exactly are you offering that's kind of different from the others?
Notice the question. What are you offering that's actually different from the others?
Yeah, so at Scale, we've been in the AI industry for more than 7 years now. We've been quietly powering much of the modern revolution in generative AI. And what we're seeing today is a lot of AI tourists pretending to be AI natives.
So right there, he is saying that, I mean, presumably these companies that are tourists like Palantir, right? Because those are the companies they mentioned. They're pretending to be an AI native. And that's where I'm just like, I don't know if I trust you saying Palantir is an AI tourist in this game.
There's a lot of companies who are not selling solutions. They're ultimately just selling vaporware.
Even that, I'm just like, bro, did you take a masterclass on how to copy Alex Karp? They're not selling solutions. They're selling steak dinners. Did you replace steak dinner with vaporware? I mean, this is where I was just like, and again, I'm not mad at the kid or anything. I'm just like, this I think Karp has been saying this for a long time, and it seems like you're just taking his exact words, changing some words here and there, and trying to now brand your company in the same way Karp has been branding Palantir, which it just doesn't come off the same. It's just not as authentic to me.
And our products, they aren't coming soon. They're in the hands of customers today, from the Fortune 500 to the U.S. Department of Defense. And we don't see many other platforms that can say that. So today, we're proud to introduce our 2 new generative AI platforms.
And then he gets into his platforms, right? And it's like, look, on first, I just didn't believe the guy. And again, there's no hate towards the guy. I mean, I hope he builds a really good company and he's successful, all that stuff. It's just in the context of, if you're going to start competing with Palantir and using their terms to be able to market yourself, which this is a game of marketing at the end of the day, right? If a lot of these things become commodities in terms of models, this is who can make people feel their data is secure. It's not as interesting to me with the vision that he's selling. I mean, look, maybe he'll get some customers from that, but the overall implication to this is that I do not think it has been a bad thing for Alex Karp to be speaking the way he has for the past 2 years, especially December 2021, right before he gave that Stanford interview where he said, look, the world is becoming deglobalized. And, obviously Karp has been seeing things behind the scenes with how Russia and China have been operating. And then 2 months later, Russia invades Ukraine. I mean, what is the one company that's actually out there helping Ukraine with their software? Palantir. It's not Scale. It's not Snowflake. It's not any of these guys. So, when Karp speaks about democracy and authoritarianism and the nature of ethics and privacy and actually establishing a way to integrate AI into the military and its Department of Defense, I believe him because he's doing it for a country that's being war-torn right now. I don't believe someone who's just taking his words and then regurgitating them in his own way and then trying to get people to believe that his platform can work. I wish him all the best of success and luck, but the point of this, if you're a Palantir investor, is other people copying your CEO is a good thing because it means your CEO knows what he's saying and he's not just on an island saying this. Because if this guy realizes, oh, for me to sell my stuff, I have to win this entire argument about democracy, authoritarianism, and the fight between Russia and China. For me to win these clients, I need to win this macro level thesis. I think Karp's been way ahead of that for years now about that macro level thesis because he saw it coming, because that's what it takes to be a visionary. And now they just need to execute on the product side. And if they can do that, I think it can be pretty big. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think about Alex Karp and a potential competitor coming to the space using some of his same vocabulary and his same words. And I'll see you guys in the next one.